time management is for sure the most ultimate thing, protecting your time that most people are not that great at. And the truth is, you really can't get good at protecting your time until you have to, until you're like, I'm stretched too thin and I will burn out if I can't get this under control. Because in order to protect your time, you have to be comfortable with saying no or not right now pretty frequently, and building those systems and barriers to your time, which most people feel selfish in doing. I believe it is selfish not to protect your time, because we all have people that are counting on us. My family is counting on me, and my mission is to support them. And so if I say yes to everyone that asks for my time, I'll never have time for my family. I'll never be able to do the income producing activities they need. So there's always, like you said, first some mindset involved in why is this happening? And let's give ourselves permission to change it and get excited to change it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Move the Chains podcast. We've got an awesome episode for you today. We're talking to Rob Stein. Rob is a national speaker, coach, entrepreneur, published author, and a championship bodybuilder who has built and scaled multiple businesses across a variety of industries, including creating the #1 online training platform in the US for real estate sales. Rob is the creator of the Impossible to Fail framework. It's also the title of his book, built on one core belief that with the right guidance, executed with massive action and relentless consistency and time, is impossible to fail. Maybe that sounds familiar to you guys. Rob's got a master's degree in education. He's known for combining motivation and inspiration with clear, tactical, step-by-step execution. He was featured at TEDx Westminster, and we're going to have an awesome conversation today. So, Rob, welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out with us, and I can't wait to dive in, man.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks so much for having me. I've really been looking forward to this.
All right, so let's start with your background. I love talking to people with diverse biographies and backgrounds. You've got some really cool life experiences, master's degree in education. I want to talk to you later about how that helps you as a coach, but you're a championship bodybuilder. I know that's going to come up later because that's where we learned the importance of habits and detail orientation and falling in love with the process. But the real estate thing is really cool too. So how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's been a wild ride, man. And it's really, one thing it's taught me is, we are capable of adapting to anything if we really want to. I grew up in New Jersey. Money was really tight growing up. And that was a huge motivating factor for me, even when I was really little. I was blessed to have wonderful parents, great relationship with them. But even my earliest memories of my dad are just being stressed about money. And it seemed to be kind of the root of all of the stress that my family experienced. So even from a young age, I really had a goal to have enough income that my family just never ever worried about it. That was a real driving force. My dad, also in real estate, always instilled a great work ethic in me, telling me it's always better to work for yourself. You can accomplish anything you want if you're willing to work hard enough for it. I fell in love with music when I got into high school with the marching band activity and went into education from there. So I started achieving my bachelor's in jazz trumpet performance. Used to be a pro trumpet player, get my master's in education, and then I was a teacher. But I quickly discovered that I love teaching. I don't love teaching other people's kids. And I always had that entrepreneurial spirit, and teaching just didn't do it for me. And so I started building my first business, which was in music composition and publishing, while I was a middle school teacher. And I talk about the process in my TEDx talk a little bit, but it took 10 years to do that from scratch, building a business that eventually went 5x my teaching salary, and I could quit teaching. That was 10 years ago that I did that. And after that, went full-time entrepreneurship. My dad had always been involved in real estate. And once I had time to really focus on building my music business, it started occurring to me, maybe I should diversify my income. Real estate seems like a no-brainer. I started going to my dad's seminars as he was a successful real estate investor, and quickly fell in love with it. The really neat thing about going to the real estate seminars was it was my first time being around an entrepreneurial crowd. And teachers, God bless teachers, we need teachers. They're generally not an entrepreneurial bunch.
Mm.
So I felt extremely out of place in the teachers lounge, like anywhere, and going to these real estate entrepreneur investor conferences, telling people my goals and hearing them say, "You can do it. That's amazing. Let me know how I can help you." Instead of, "Why would you do that? Why, when you have these amazing golden handcuffs
Yeah.
and $50,000 a year?"
Yeah.
So that I just completely fell in love with entrepreneurship, real estate. Uh, my wife and I pretty much burned the docks. She quit her teaching job. We moved to Austin, Texas, got our licenses. It was a very scary start, which I detail in the book. But after 7 months of no clients, made about $50,000 in the first week of commissions, and things really took off from there. Became a top performing solo agent, built my team, started my coaching program, which with God's grace and a whole lot of work has become the #1 online program for realtors in the nation. Um, and then also, the bodybuilding thing, which we can always get into later. But I grew up super overweight. Uh, Always got made fun of as a kid for being fat, and I really kind of found my sport in training after I had an aha moment, which I detail in my TEDx talk, where I got so big that I was putting on a belt. And as I wrestled the belt on, the belt buckle popped off and flew across the room. And that was my, oh my goodness, something has to change moment. And, really fell in love with training, had a big transformation, got into bodybuilding. And so it's kind of been one thing leading into another, building one thing that has allowed me to leverage that into another thing, continuing just trying to, steward the talents and the blessings God has given me to help others and, live the best life we can.
It's so amazing to me how, I mean, without fail, when I talk to people that have this diverse background, that transfer of skill is the only way that I can describe it. But you
Mm.
do, like you said, you do a thing and you develop some confidence or some competency or abilities, and there's carryover, right? Things you learn from being an educator that you apply to building the course for real estate, and the things from bodybuilding lead to other things, and so that that is something that I think you bring up the difference between teachers and real estate. Like when you're in that room with people that think like an entrepreneur, I think folks who don't think like an entrepreneur really underestimate or completely miss out on the gift of getting in the arena, doing the thing, and then benefiting in, I don't want to say illogical ways, but maybe unpredictable ways from
Mm.
how that capacity transfers. And there's a lot in what you said that I want to dig into, but my biggest question is, you're from Jersey, you play the trumpet. Why did you not try out for the E Street Band?
That's funny. Oh man, that would have been awesome. I played a lot of that kind of stuff when I was in school. Uh, man, at the time, after college, I still gigged a little bit, but I was just obsessed with building my music business.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you've built many businesses. You're a super high performer. You coach high performers. There's only so many hours in the day, no matter how many good you are at, no matter how good you are at the
Yeah,
time management. And I was just so, eat, sleep, live, breathe my music business at the time, and I was all in on that.
got it. Well, so something you said before we hit record is actually a note that I have. I wanted to make sure we touch on this. So let's do it now. I think it kind of fits in with this transfer of skill. But it's not about what do you want to accomplish. The real question is, who do you want to become?
Mm.
I'd love to hear how you, like, once you introduce that concept to folks that you work with, or if you're on stage, how do you help them close that gap and begin to shift their focus from results to habits?
Man, what you just said is like literally one of the opening lines of a typical keynote I'll give on habits and high performance. The question is not what do you want to accomplish? It's who do you want to become? And I think when anyone that has been fortunate to achieve success in something that's very meaningful to them, they've been through a journey of self-transformation. And I believe that we all start that journey thinking, when I achieve X, when I achieve this result I'm chasing, I will then become this person that I have in my mind. I will be successful when I achieve this thing, this amount of money, this metric, this title, this status. And what we all inevitably realize is when we achieve it, we don't feel any different.
Yep.
What we do feel different about is the person we become in the process. The most incredible thing about trying to reach your ultimate potential or achieve something big is that results do not create identity. Identity creates results. So for example, when, if someone becomes a gold medal Olympic athlete, I don't think of it as they become the gold medalist once they get the medal. They got the medal because they did the things a gold medalist does. When I won my first bodybuilding show, it on the surface level, you could say I became a championship bodybuilder when I won that show, but I look at it as I won that show because I did the things that a championship bodybuilder does. I showed up every day, whether I felt like it or not. And you know this, that the better you look, the worse you feel. And I did not feel like it, but I did it anyway because we don't listen to our feelings, as you are like the ultimate authority on that. So we become the person. And so when I engage, especially on stage or with someone that in a one-to-one coaching setting, I ask them, what is it that you want to accomplish? But then the immediate path we take is, who do you need to become that those results are an inevitable byproduct of your life? Mm-hmm. The life we live is a result of the decisions that we make every day. And so in order to live the life we want, it comes down to what decisions are we making. To make the right decisions, those decisions have to feel easy, because if we constantly feel resistance to the decisions we have to make, we're not going to make them. And so in order for them to feel easy, they need to become habits, because habits are easy, automated, and require no thought by definition. One of the biggest concepts that I teach on is that habits don't start as habits. They begin as disciplined decisions. Mm-hmm. And it is the period of time between making that first disciplined decision to the habit forming that is the hardest part, that there really isn't a shortcut for. There's no amount of time it takes to form a habit. There's no 21-day, 30-day. That's nonsense. There are two things that determine the habit, what I call the distance and the speed. So number one is, how far is the new desired behavior from what you're currently doing? And you can accomplish and overhaul anything you want, but the further it is from what you're doing, the longer it's going to take. And then it's the speed, which is really your consistency and your purpose. How consistent are you willing to be with this thing? Once you get to what I call that proof of concept moment where, hey, this thing that used to be uncomfortable for me to do is actually working, and now I'm enjoying doing it. That's when the habit forms. But in order to achieve what you want, you must become a new version of yourself. And then the results are going to happen. They're just going to happen they're just going to be the inevitable, impossible to fail, only possible outcome, because you're making the right decisions.
Yeah, I love that. That's so well articulated. And I love that you focus on that critical time period between the disciplined decision and when it becomes a habit. So maybe we dig in there. Because as you know, like, that is so critical. It's when the new thing is most uncomfortable. It's when we're the most likely to alter course, to have doubts, to have second thoughts, to be susceptible to the naysayers, whatever. What are some strategies that you arm your clients with to either, well, you can't shorten the gap. So maybe it's be more consistent or change that speed part of that equation.
Yeah. Great question. We do have some control over how long it takes, which is really by consistency. I think people confuse discipline and consistency. They're similar, but they're not the same. And here's the biggest difference. Discipline does not require consistency. but consistency does require discipline. Someone can be disciplined for a very short amount of time, for an hour, a day, or a week. We see that with New Year's resolutioners. They're very disciplined for a short amount of time. They're not consistent. You can crush your nutrition and training for a day and you won't look any different the next day. It's about consistency. So the first thing I prep people for when we're working on this is that consistency is the most underrated yet most important factor in achieving, because that is the sole determining factor as to how long it's going to take for you to get there. What I encourage people to do, number one, is pick one habit at a time that we want to overhaul. Some people can make a dramatic life transformation and change everything at once. Most people are not wired that way. And for anyone that is listening to this right now that might feel, if you just felt like a tinge of guilt, don't let that's nonsense. That is not what you should be feeling. We were all created a specific way, and it's not about trying to change the way we're wired. It's about trying to make sure that we set ourselves up for success. So if you know about yourself, I'm going to pick one thing and really focus on that. Great. Ask yourself, what is the one thing I can do that's going to have the most dramatic change? What's the biggest behavior I can change right now? Then what I encourage people to do is ahead of time, pick your proof of concept moment. As a quick illustration, when I overhauled my fitness through the P90X program, maybe you remember it, Tony Horton, right? Completely revolutionized the home fitness industry. And after what I talk about in my book and my TEDx talk, my belt buckle moment, when I had gotten so overweight that I was putting on a belt I used to wear comfortably, and after wrestling with this thing, finally got it on, exhale a sigh of relief, and the belt buckle stretched so tight that it literally popped off, flew across the room, and made a hole in the wall. It seems like something out of a sitcom, but it was not funny in the moment. It was like mouth open, staring at the wall. What on earth is happening to me right now? This is terrible. And so I had a deep purpose to overhaul my fitness, and it took a really long time. Changing my nutritional habits, changing my fitness habits. I didn't want to eat the healthy stuff. It was a disciplined decision every single day. But then one moment I did it twice. So I did it for 6 months. And so about 4.5 months in, finally one day I look in the mirror and I saw something I'd never seen before. My abs. I didn't even know they were under there, dude. But all of a sudden I go, holy smokes, I can see my abs coming in. And in that moment, that was the proof of concept moment where discipline turned into desire. When I said, I'm going to eat the healthy stuff, even though I don't want to I do want the healthy stuff, push that nasty stuff I used to eat away. I don't want it anymore. When I became a real estate agent, the proof of concept moment I chose ahead of time was my first commission. When I started my music business, it was when I sell my first piece of music to a group that's never heard of me. They just listen to my website, they like it, and they buy it. So I encourage people, pick the behavior and pick the proof of concept moment ahead of time. What needs to happen for you to know this is working? Then we simply iron out, what daily decisions do you need to make this habit happen? Do we make them all at once, or do we incrementally get our way there? If someone is waking up at 7 o'clock and they need to be an early riser at 5 o'clock to make it happen for the day, I typically will not wake them up 2 hours earlier the next day. We might take 15-minute increments for 5 to 7 days and work our way there. So we strategize. What are the decisions that need to be made to form the new habit? What's the proof of concept moment? And then the truth is, once that's ironed out, the only way you can do it is keep your head down, stick your arm out, and push through until it happens. And that is something that's not popular to say, and most people don't want to hear. Yeah. They don't want to hear there's not an app, there's not a hack, there's not an AI tool, there's not a pill, there's not a this, there's not a that. Yeah. There is no shortcut for grit, delayed gratification, and hard work. And that is what it will take. And if you're willing to do that, which, by the way, anyone can do it, it's not, are you capable of it? I'll tell you right now, yes, you're capable of it. It's, are you willing to go through that period of time? If you are, man, the sky's the limit.
Rob, we're so aligned on, our beliefs and what we teach and how we teach it. I'm completely bought into this idea that with a system like this and with that level of commitment, that that it would be impossible to fail, right? As
Yep.
long as you keep showing up, as long as you keep doing those things
Yep.
with the right amount of time, it will happen. So I'm curious when you get people, like, what's that conversation to get them to really believe that success can actually be inevitable?
In my book, Impossible to Fail, the core framework, and I discovered this after being able to achieve success in many unrelated things using the same exact framework. Teaching to building my music business, full-time entrepreneur, overweight to bodybuilder, real estate agent, coach, speaker, author, etc. It starts with the blueprint, which is getting that guide, that step-by-step guide from someone that two parts to it. Number one, you have to get that information from someone that's been there and done that. They've done what you're trying to do. Number two, equally as important, they have a good track record of teaching others to be able to do the same thing. Because you can be really good at something, but that doesn't mean you're good at helping others do it or teaching others how to do it, which I think is where my master's in education is very, very helpful there. Mm-hmm. So the blueprint is extremely important. And to answer your question, this is what I tell people, because people oftentimes at the beginning stages of, I want to accomplish this thing, but it is so far away from where I'm at now. It's so overwhelming. I just can't imagine getting there. So the first thing I tell people is it's okay to have a destination in mind without knowing how you're going to get there. That's okay. You do it every day. You get in the car and put an address into your GPS. So the concept of, I have a goal, I don't know how I'm going to accomplish a goal, but I believe if we're able to even visualize ourselves accomplishing a goal, it's because you were created with the ability to accomplish that goal. You can accomplish anything you can visualize. So first, I give them permission to have a goal without knowing how they're going to get there. That doesn't mean you can't get there. It just means you don't know how. What do you do when you want to get somewhere and you don't know how? You hire a guide. You get directions. So that's where the blueprint comes in. And when you get the blueprint from, number one, someone that's been there and done that, you know they can speak with authority. You know what they're doing works. And when you verify they have a track record of helping others accomplish the same goals, that's the first step in saying, well, if they can do it and they can help other people do it, I can do it. Like, I'm capable of doing it. That's the first thing that just kind of opens the door, so to speak. If someone's door is completely sealed, that lets a little bit of light in. And once a little bit of light is in, it's not much further to swing it wide open. So the blueprint is the foundation. And then there's three parts of implementation. Number one, and all three parts are essential to the recipe. Massive action. A level of action that probably makes you uncomfortable. Certainly a level of action that makes those around you uncomfortable. When they know you and now they're going, whoa, you need to slow down. No, you need to speed up, or excuse me, I'm coming through. So it's an incredible amount of action, because if you want to accomplish big things, it takes an incredible amount of action. Number two, relentless consistency, which again is every day, as you know, Ryan, whether you feel like it or not, because the truth is that more often than not, the things that really need to be done to help you grow are extremely uncomfortable when you're starting them. And your body and your mind is going to fight you every step of the way. It's called the comfort zone for a reason. But consistency is the only thing that will change it. Now, let's look at those two. If you do massive action without the consistency, you're just like everyone that gets a gym membership on January 1st and it's expired and they're not going by February. If you're relentlessly consistent doing the wrong thing, like you didn't get the blueprint and you're sprinting in the wrong direction, that's not good either. Right. So we get the blueprint, massive action, relentless consistency. And then the third part is time. And that is the only thing that is not quite within our control. We have some influence over it, but we don't always know how the market is going to respond. I'm sure you would agree that anything of substance you've ever accomplished has probably taken longer than you thought it would, required more sacrifice than you thought it would, but you got there and it's totally worth it. Mm-hmm. You can't rush water boiling, no matter how hot you make it. It only boils at 212. And so many people get to 208, 209, 210, they shut it down. And so once you've got the massive action and relentless consistency, then time is the factor. And I have a lot of stories I can illustrate to people I help work through this to encourage them. Look, if I can go from a teacher, an underpaid, overweight teacher, to doing these things, like anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. I have a lot of stories that help illustrate this. For example, when I started my real estate team, when I went from a solo agent to a team leader, I hired a coach to help me build a team, and it was not working. It was like 3, 4, 5 months in, losing money. It's taking time. I'm like, dude, I started this to make more money. I'm losing money. I think I need to quit the team. And my coach, who was very great coach in this, said, Rob, I know you. I know what you're doing. You're doing everything right. You just haven't been doing it long enough. Keep doing what you're doing. And I guarantee you within 6 months, your life will look dramatically different. 2 months later, had our first profitable month. 2 months after that, I had my first $100,000 profit month, and things kept accelerating. So that was an example of strictly time. Mm-hmm. So when I help people just like you, like remove their emotions out of it, let's look at the data and realize that with the right decisions, using this information and blueprint, you will inevitably get what you want. And you have me, in this instance, to tell you when you're questioning things that you're on the right track or you're not. It is inevitable that you're going to get there. How long is it going to take? I don't know, but I guarantee you we will get there. And so when I just help them remove their emotions, realize there is a very logical, proven path that we can take. You're capable of it. I'm here for you. Once mentally we get there, the rest really starts gaining traction. But it's important that we start with that mindset aspect, because I'll usually tell people, if they ask, Rob, how do I XYZ? The first question I ask is, before I tell you, why do you want to do it in the first place? Mm-hmm. Because as you know, you can teach someone how to do something, but if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. How many people know how to do something and don't do it? Because they just simply don't have the right desire or motivation. So we start there mentally, and that kind of gives them permission to be like, okay, yeah, let's go.
And I love hearing you break down your process. And you mentioned the master's in education probably helping with this. I'm just curious, especially on the online course for real estate, there's so many online courses. I mean, I've seen the numbers from somebody that is heavily involved in that industry. Retention rates are horrible for most courses. Yep. Completion rates terrible. How do you, what from your education background have you incorporated into the way you've built that course? Do you think makes a big difference for you, makes that course, the best course?
Yeah, great question. And I implement this in my online courses and also in my coaching, my one-to-one coaching or maybe leadership coaching with a team. First part is you have to understand who you're teaching and how they're going to best receive the information. In the education world, we call that differentiated instruction, because not all people learn the same. Audio, there's, audio, visual, kinesthetic, etc. But then we also just have personality types. I'm a very high D personality type. I would imagine you're pretty similar. But then we have people, if someone is a very high I or a very high S, especially a very high S or C, would inevitably perceive me as way too aggressive. And so if I'm working with someone of a different personality type, I need to understand not how do I think they need to hear it, but how do they actually need to hear what I want them to understand and receive it and be able to implement it. So part of it is realizing we generally tend to talk to people how we want to be talked to, and only 10 to 30% of the population receives information the way we do. And so that's the first thing to just understanding the audience. Regarding the online course, one of the biggest X factors is that they are interactive videos. It's really unique, and it's never been used in the real estate industry before. Participation for online courses is essential, and that is why most of them don't work. You're basically watching a YouTube video on an educational platform. It's a one-way street. Information is hurled at you. If you're motivated, you absorb it, but it's it's not super compelling for people to pay attention to it. So my interactive videos very much simulate a live class. So I might have, let's say, an hour-long course on open houses broken down into 8 short videos. And the first video course, I'm explaining a certain aspect of an open house for 2 minutes. And then I'll say, now someone walks into your open house and they say they're visiting family in the area and they're considering moving there. How do you respond? And then I'm looped there looking at them, blinking, waiting for them to answer. 4 answers pop up on the screen, and whichever one they choose, we go a different direction. Or the video says, here's 3 things we're going to cover. What do you want to learn about first? And they get to choose and participate in it. Yeah. So of course, that type of course takes an incredible amount of time to produce and write and script, because one video might actually contain 25 to 30 mini videos that are all sequenced together depending on what they want to do. But and there's resources and spreadsheets and downloadable scripts and an interactive call simulator where they can practice their role playing. So every type of learner has an avenue in which they want to receive the information. And so so the online course, that's really the X factor that it brings to the table, because people need to enjoy it if they're going to do it. And so we've seen incredible retention and completion rates compared to industry norms. But then again, especially that master's in education from a coaching perspective, I'm very deep in research and mastery of the disc profile. So all of my one-on-one coaching students, we start with an interview, and then they do a very thorough disc assessment, not to see if they're a good fit for coaching, but for me to learn how can I best communicate with this student, because I'm only an effective coach if I can help them optimally. And so I want to understand how can I best communicate with them and help them understand the content I'm delivering to them so that they can actually apply it.
Yeah, that's really cool. The example or the way you have that online course laid out is really cool. I'm somebody who I don't like online courses for the exact reasons you laid out. And I can imagine that if I were to take one in something that I'm interested in and it had that level of interaction, that kind of choose your own adventure type of thing, like I can see how that would increase retention and completion rates. So that's really cool. When you coach someone who wants more success, but they're already stretched thin, where do you usually start? Is it mindset, standards, execution? Do you dive right into time management?
That's a great question. What I'll do is when someone is considering wanting to coach, when we're exploring that relationship, the very first thing they do is fill out a very in-depth survey intake form. Depending on that, we then go to an interview, like a consultation, to explore the possibility of working together. But it's a pretty in-depth form. So number one, that just helps filter out people that might not be serious. But I ask them a lot of questions about their life, their business, their schedule. And one of the things on there is, if we work together, there's 2 really important questions on there. What needs to happen within the first 6 months for you to feel this was undoubtedly a worthwhile investment for you? And number 2 is, what is the very first thing you want to tackle if we get together? That doesn't always mean that's going to be the first thing we need to tackle, but it helps me understand where they think they are. If someone is generally stretched very thin, it's typically one of 2 things. Number one, they're already a very high performer and motivation is not their issue. They probably just need to delegate a little more and make some hires so that they can utilize their time for their superpower. Or they haven't reached their full potential in doing the right amount of action because they're doing way too many low-level activities that keep them busy but unproductive, that get that dopamine fix because they feel like they're doing something, but they're kind of avoiding doing the most meaningful work that's really going to push the needle. Typically, I'd say it's probably about, it really depends on the person, but it's one of those 2 things. Time management is for sure the most ultimate thing, protecting your time, that most people are not that great at. And the truth is, you really can't get good at protecting your time until you have to. until you're like, I'm stretched too thin and I will burn out if I can't get this under control. Because in order to protect your time, you have to be comfortable with saying no or not right now pretty frequently, and building those systems and barriers to your time, which most people feel selfish in doing. I believe it is selfish not to protect your time, because we all have people that are counting on us. My family is counting on me, and my mission is to support them. And so if I say yes to everyone that asks for my time, I'll never have time for my family. I'll never be able to do the income producing activities they need. So there's always, like you said, first some mindset involved in why is this happening? And let's give ourselves permission to change it and get excited to change it. Because again, I'm sure you can resonate. You can teach someone time blocking all day. They're not always going to do it. So the first thing is, why is this happening? And let's get the proper motivation to give you permission to understand it's not selfish to protect your time. You will make more money when you hire the right person. I have a one-on-one coaching student right now. We're in the middle of hiring her EA, and we're interviewing. And yesterday we had a call. And she goes, this person, there's one person that is way above my budget. And I think I'm in too much of a startup mode. And I look at all the conversation exchange in the resume, and I'm like, this is the person you need to hire, because you can't get to where you need to be until you hire this person. And she is going to help you get to the next level. And by the end of it, she's setting up the interview. So we always start with some mindset to figure out, why is this happening? Let's give yourself permission to want to change it. And then it's typically going to be a time audit. What are you actually spending your time doing? What do you need to be spending your time doing? And let's create the structures of your day. Again, there needs to be minimal resistance to this. So if we use online calendar tools, AI, a person that we hire to help manage the schedule, to delegate some tasks to, so that people will feel more fulfilled when they're actually having fun, and they're going to have fun when they're doing the meaningful work that they are meant to do. So that's kind of where we start. And then we always have a very simple blueprint at the end of our weekly call. Here's the 3 to 5 things you need to do to keep moving.
Yeah. I love that. We've talked about standards a couple of times. Like the word has come up. So I'm curious, the longer you're with somebody, and as they kind of graduate through that transformation process, how are you teaching, maybe not teaching standards, but how are you helping people elevate their standards over time?
Man, great question. I think the biggest issue with standards is everyone generally says they have standards. Like if you ask someone, what are your standards? What do you tolerate? What do you not tolerate? They'll usually have some. The question is, are you enforcing them? And the answer is almost always no. So I have found that at the beginning of working with somebody, we set the standards, and then we work on the identity shift that needs to happen, and how do we structure enforcing those standards. There's a lot of mindset involved in that, but I'm also a big fan of, I think something that helps people remove emotions out of it is just when we make cold, hard data that doesn't lie. So someone might feel very overwhelmed at saying, I have a standard of not having people in my life that suck the energy out of me, or I have a standard of only surrounding myself with people that are going to sharpen me. I have a standard of only putting healthy food in my body. But then they get very overwhelmed with thinking, how am I going to enforce that? So the first thing we do is say, hey, we don't change the standard. We don't lower the standard if we're not achieving it. We raise the level of action and mindset that we need to do to meet that standard. And then how do we create structure? We start with standards. We reverse engineer to say, what structure do I need to have in my life that makes it easy to enforce these standards? For example, if someone says, I need to have a standard of protecting my time and only doing the work I need to do, they're generally not going to be able to do that without some type of calendar management or an assistant, so that they don't even have to make the decision. Something or someone else protects that time for them. So standards are extremely important to, number one, to have, but the most important thing is, what tools, technology, systems, processes, and people can we utilize to make it easy to enforce these standards? That's the most important thing. We start there, and then we create those processes that allow the standards to be enforced. And the really neat thing is, if someone commits to that, they typically take the initiative to want to elevate their own standards, because once they start achieving success in those things, they realize, wow, I think I might be capable of more. I achieved this goal I had, but now I think I want to get to this next this next one. And that's always something that we talk about when we get to those certain kind of benchmark points. But I always try to ask questions that my students and the people I engage with to come to their own conclusions. Because when they come to it themselves, they take more ownership of it, and then we help them get there. But the first thing we do is we set the standard. And even if I'm talking to a corporate leadership team, what standards does your company have? Are you enforcing these standards? If not, let's look at what systems and processes we need to implement that the only inevitable outcome is these standards will be enforced. I think most people think very emotionally about standards, whereas let's target the standard, but let's try to take the emotion out of it and just implement the tools that the only inevitable byproduct is it is impossible that these standards will not be enforced.
It's a really interesting point. I think my background in science informs the way I think about standards. And for me, there's never been an emotional component to it. So that explanation really helps me understand, back to your conversation earlier about, different people learn different ways or think about different things. And
Yeah.
to realize that a lot of people have an emotional entanglement
Yes.
with standards makes it easier to understand why some people struggle to hold them or see them. I guess the way I see them is very binary
Yes.
and objective.
Yeah. And inevitably, that has been a huge X factor in your success and your methods. I mean, look at the title of your book, right? Like you have
Right.
no problem separating feelings from self-reflection and what needs to be done. I'm very similar. I would imagine, have you ever done a disc test?
I've done all of those,
Yeah.
Briggs, Colby Myers, whatever. And
Right.
I can't remember, but I probably D, but I need to redo it just to see.
I would imagine you and I are very similar just based on what you just said. So mine is, I'm a super, super, super high D. C is right behind that. That's like the analytical, high standards, analyzing things, make everything perfect. Right behind that is I. So that's, the speaking, the engaging. So D, C, I, all very high in that order. And my S, my supportive, my empathy is generally in the basement. It's way down there. And
sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. Hello, right? So just point to if you're not watching this and you're listening, he pointed to his book right in the back. Right. So exactly. And so this was a huge learning experience for me when I started getting into more speaking and coaching. It wasn't uncommon for people to say, like, Rob, you're really intense, man. Like, and for me to have a coaching interview with someone and they say, I need to take time to think about it. So they're probably an S or a C.
Yeah.
My thought process is, what, are you lazy? Are you not committed to your goals? What is there to think about? You just said, this is what you need to accomplish your goals. Why would you wait to accomplish your goals? And that's truthfully what I think and how I would approach it. I don't make knee-jerk decisions, but when I know it needs to be done, let's go. Let's do it as fast as possible. But someone that is maybe a different personality type, that high S, that high C, they're going to say, hey, why is he so pushy? What is going on here? I need time to think about it to be sure I'm making the right decision. And it's not right or wrong. It's just how they are wired to think.
Right.
And so, very high Ds. I've had the opportunity to learn from Dr. Robert Rome twice in person, and he's kind of like the godfather of the disc profile. And we started with a very thorough disc exam, and I realized super high D, super low S. And one of the things in his book is he talks about the percentage of the population that is different personality types. Only 10% of the population are very high Ds. And so what I realized was I am potentially alienating 90% of my audience or not speaking to them the way they need to. And I had some conversations with him about that. And he gave me, like, for example, I told him about that recent conversation I had with someone that didn't choose to engage coaching with me because they thought I was just too much. And he said, hey, it's not right or wrong. It's just how they're wired. So here's what you say. Tell them, hey, I'm comfortable with you taking your time to think about this. I'm not comfortable with you losing out on this opportunity and not getting to where you need to go. So I want you to let me know if there's anything else I can give you that would help you make an informed decision. And can I circle back with you in 3 days? I used that next time and it worked. And just understanding that concept of it's not right or wrong, it's just how people are created. If you try to fight it, you will lose every time. No one wants to be told what to do. No one. They need to take ownership of it. And understanding that, and even still, like, I don't get it because I'm like, I am not an emotional guy. I just make what I feel is the right decision. And if it doesn't go well, okay, let's analyze and move on. But most people aren't like that. So once I just accepted that and realized it's not right or wrong, how can I understand them, talk to them the way they need to be talked to, even though that's not how I think, it really helped my ability to help others.
There's a lot of really interesting stuff in there. I'm curious now, especially like, what are you doing on stage to make sure that you don't alienate 90% of people, right? Like if you're up there, you're the high D, it's a platform where somebody brings you in, you're expected to be inspirational, motivational. You need to be high energy. So you want to deliver on those things, but you don't want to alienate 90% of the people. It's also a platform where, as we were talking about earlier with the course, you understand everybody learns in different ways. So I'm sure you're going to work in some interactive stuff, maybe some flip charts if you can or whatever. But how do you structure that in your planning phase to make sure that you're as approachable as possible and can connect with as much of the audience as possible?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. And it's kind of a case by case basis. So I would say that when it comes to, let's say one-to-one coaching or coaching a team of people versus a stage appearance. If someone is bringing me in for a stage appearance, like, they want the D, that's my niche. So if someone says, hey, I want a very corporate, laid back, emotional sensitivity, like, I'm not the guy for that. It's just not me. Like, if people want their audience to be ready to run through a brick wall, that's what I do. And there is a certain level of intensity that I enjoy bringing to the stage. Sure. That being said, there is an aspect of how am I saying the message I'm trying to deliver that has changed over time. So for example, I'm going to speak intensely and bring that fire kind of no matter what. But an approach I might used to take is calling out someone's work ethic or desire if they're not taking the right actions. After I realize it's not a work ethic issue, it might not be a work ethic issue, and it might not be a desire issue, and I can't make people feel attacked by my message. I can't make them feel like I'm calling them lazy or that they don't care. The difference is, before I got really into the personality studying, that's genuinely what I thought. You must not care. You say you want this thing. You know what you need to do. You're not doing it. You must be lazy and not care. Sometimes that's true, but most of the time it's not. And so when I realize I can still be intense, I can still bring the fire, I can still give people that spark that they need. However, I can't make them feel attacked or that they're wrong or bad. And so a lot of it is, what words am I using to deliver the message? And I've also, there are some more tactical things like pacing of the speech, making sure I'm not talking super loud and fast the whole time. Sometimes if I really want to make a big point, I'll come down and say it quietly. and people might lean in a little bit. So there is those things that, as you know, you gain with more experience on how to hold an audience and have some nice peaks and valleys. But a lot of it is, again, like I'm just like you, like the guy that you bring in when you want to fire up your people. But so much of it has been in the words I use, the way the message is conveyed, that the message doesn't change, but some of the verbiage is changed so that people can feel on board and excited and inspired rather than attacked.
Yeah. Yeah. Rob, we're coming up on the end, so I want to give people a chance to find more of you, follow you. Where can they go? Website, social media, LinkedIn, best place to get more of you. And of
Yeah.
course, grab the book, Impossible to Fail.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be robstein.com, Stein. That's where everything is. The book is available anywhere books are sold. Most people like to get it on Amazon because we all get stuff on Amazon. There's an audiobook that I narrate for high performers that want to learn on the go. But robstein.com is where you can learn more about me, submit a speaking inquiry, learn more about coaching, check out the speaker reel. So that would for sure be the best place to go.
And if there are any real estate folks on here, they can find the course through that website also.
Yep, absolutely. They can
Okay.
get the info. Typically, the way I do it is we license to corporate partners. So typically what I do is license
Okay.
to big real estate companies, and
Got
then
it.
they provide the training to all of their agents. I have found I solve a much bigger problem for the brokers than I do for the agents to be able to solve that training problem for them.
Look at you, Mr. Businessman. No, we'll make it easy on everybody listening. All those links will be in the show notes. So just go down to the description and click away. All right, Rob, final question. We ask every guest, number one tip to be more consistent. And since this is your wheelhouse, I'm expecting a great answer.
I think you're going to agree a lot with this. Take the emotion out of it and just do what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. The reason most people are not executing consistency is not because they're not capable of it. It's because they don't want to. Typically because they think it's taking too long. Accomplishing anything of substance will take a while. There's no shortcut to delayed gratification or that big things take a long time. Consistency comes down to purpose. So one of the things I teach people is if you want a habit to stick, attach it to an outcome that you love and focus more on what you're going to gain rather than what you're giving up. When people have a hard time executing the consistent decision that needs to be made, typically they're having a mental battle with negativity. I don't feel like doing this. I don't want to give up this thing. What I encourage you to do is focus on the positive. Visualize, I want abs. I want a healthy body. I want time freedom. I want to get out of my job and run this business. I want to support my family. Focus on what you will gain when you do it. And here's the last pro tip, which is the biggest one, which I guarantee every single time will allow you to make the disciplined, consistent decision. Verbalize it and don't keep it in your mind. If you're having a mental battle that stays in your mind, you will always lose. Always. If you are just thinking it and it stays in your internal monologue, you will lose. Your mind will be the heavyweight champion. However, if you verbalize it, so whatever that is, let's say you're staring at the thing you know you shouldn't eat. If you're thinking about it, you're going to eat it. If you say, eating this thing is not going to help me accomplish my goals. I want a healthy body. I'm committed to a healthy body. I'm going to make the right decision. I guarantee you, if you say that out loud at a volume your own two ears can hear, you will make the right decision. If you don't feel like getting in the gym, if you say, I am committed to a healthy body, a healthy mind, and stewarding this amazing body that I've been blessed with, and I'm going to make it happen, I guarantee you're going to get there. Whatever it is that you're avoiding doing, focus on the positive and verbalize it. You're going to make the right decision and realize that consistency is the only way. You are capable of making the right decision. Just think of one decision at a time. Don't worry about the next one. Just worry about this one. Verbalize it and you will make the right one.
Rob, I love it, man. This has been fantastic conversation. For everybody listening, go out there, make some great decisions. If you've enjoyed this episode, send it to somebody you know who will benefit from hearing what we're talking about here today. And as always, thanks for being a part of the Move the Chains podcast. We'll catch you on the next episode.